Good morning, Bellows Falls and Keene, and it's Mike and Marty on the feed on Wednesday, June 7th. Here we are into the month of June. Today we're going to be talking about restorative justice with Mel Dawson and Lauren MacArthur. Welcome, guys. But first, Marty with local events.
Local events. So at the Bellows Falls Opera House this week is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse for week number 2. I've seen some chatter on Facebook. I just kind of want to put this plug out there about how the Opera House is getting these movies and they're staying for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and it's hard to get, the more, I don't want to say regular movies. Yeah. The movies like Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret, or I can't think of what else is coming out right now. The Opera House doesn't always have a choice on what movies they get. They kind of have to. They're at the mercy of the distributor. Yeah. So I think if we can just give them some grace and be happy that we have what we have, and they do their best to get to the movies when they can. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to. That was just me wanting to do a public service announcement.
Well, I know, it's sort of frustrating because the market's so small, and then the distributors make them keep some of these films for 3 weeks,
which is crazy.
And it's like, well, everybody in Bellows Falls
has seen it 5 times. Well, anyway, that's why it's good that they have classic movie. So the classic movie this week is in honor of Pride Month. There are a lot of events happening in Bellows Falls for Pride Month. And the movie this week is The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and it's sponsored by Keene Pride. Coming up on June 10th, I hope you've already heard of this, and I hope you've bought your tickets, is the Bellows Falls Festival. Full day of music, food, adult beverages, non-alcoholic beverages, women's club cookies. I mean, what more could you want?
What else?
What else is there, really? I believe, fingers crossed, the weather's supposed to be good.
They're saying it's going to be good.
So down at the Waypoint Center, you can get your tickets at the door. You also will, when you come in, you will get a wristband. So that allows you to go in and out of the festival. Like if there's a band that you want to see early in the day, but you don't want to stay the whole day and you want to come back for the closing band, or if you want to come back to see Wild Goose players, because they are going to close the evening with, I don't know many details, but from what I've heard through the grapevine, a spectacular Wild Goose performance. So you won't want to miss it. Then on Sunday, there's a celebration of life up at the Meeting House for Ray Masuko. It'll start at noon, and that will include music as well. And I still haven't heard who or what, but I'm sure it will be one of Ray's favorite bands. So, okay.
Good.
Welcome.
So, Belle and Lauren, welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming.
Great to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe first, and then lead us into restorative justice and what you guys do.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm Lauren MacArthur, and I live in Marlborough, Vermont, actually, but I'm a big fan of Bellows Falls. And I got into restorative justice, actually, when I was a teacher at the Compass School over in Westminster, and they have a student-led restorative justice committee, and when I first became a teacher there, they're like, who's interested in doing this? I'm like, oh, me. And I didn't know anything about it. So I learned a lot alongside the students and did a lot of trainings with the students, and really saw how disciplinary issues that came up could be handled in a different way, a non-punitive way, where there was a lot of community involvement. So I got very excited about it. And I stopped teaching to have children and do some other things. I'm a farmer as well, and people always ask me, do you want to go back to teaching? I'm like, yeah, maybe, but I really love the restorative justice part. So
that's great.
I landed back at the Greater Falls Community Justice Center, and in addition to doing the reparative panels that we have at the center, coordinating those, I also do trainings in schools in the area. We work with about 8 or 9 different schools throughout the region.
Do you work with setting up restorative justice within schools?
Yeah, we help train staff and students. We help deal with harm repair processes that come up, and also some after COVID, a lot of communities were really fractured, staff communities, school communities, and they wanted some help in just coming back together and listening to each other and understanding each other. So
that's nice.
We do some work, just community building as well as trainings.
That's so. I'm just going to go outside the box a little bit because I thought of it. So that's kind of like maybe creating a generation that restorative justice is the norm.
That's what we're hoping.
That's great.
Yeah. And we're seeing it actually coming out. The elementary schools here have been doing a really nice job using restorative processes, and you're seeing that coming up through the middle school now, and being used to being in circle.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's one of my passions, really, is working with the schools.
How about you, Mel?
Hi. So I'm Mel Dawson, and I just joined the Justice Center 6-7 months ago. It wasn't very long. I started in November, I think. And before that, well, first of all, I live in Westminster, so right down the road. And I have 3 kids of my own, and I was a family therapist for a long time. So I did a lot of different kinds of work in that field, and then I kind of stopped doing that and just needed a break, and felt through my parenting and just through the work with families over the years that treating kids and people in general in a restorative way rather than a punitive way was just aligned with my values and the way I worked, and I saw it really work with families that I worked with. So then I got in touch with Lauren to volunteer, or Lauren got in touch with me through a friend, and I started volunteering as a panel member, which we'll kind of explain later on a reparative panel. And then it just kind of worked out that they needed another person, and so I joined the team. And I'm doing, so I do reentry work with incarcerated individuals coming back into the community. And we do something called COSAs. Also, we run COSAs, which are circles of support and accountability. So those are also a kind of panel that we'll talk a little bit more about probably in a bit. And then I also do victim advocacy, or what we call harmed parties. Like, I work with the harmed parties in these situations. So I might reach out to anyone who's been harmed in process, and that if we're working with a party that harmed, I'll reach out to the person that's harmed, and then get their voice and have them be a part of the process as well. And I'm also doing a little bit of work in the schools, but one-on-one with some students as well.
So what's your relationship between you, the police, and the judicial system?
Is that in your slides?
It is on the slides. I was going to say, yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, we could look at the slides.
Sure. There we go.
Right.
Oh my God, you guys are good.
So,
who knew?
We can get referrals a lot of different ways. So our work is primarily funded by the Department of Corrections, but we're really there as an alternative to incarceration and going through the court system and paying a fine. So for example, especially with like low-level crimes, so say you got in trouble in Bells Falls, you got disorderly and you got in a fight with somebody.
Do you know Mike?
And they were like,
they
were like, we know you have a great TV show, and we've never seen you get in trouble before, and it seems like this is something that you could work out. They might send you to us for our pre-charge program, and that program for low-level crimes allows people, especially if you don't have anything on your record, to come through and go through a restorative process, and then you don't end up with a charge at all.
Charged.
Exactly.
You don't go to court, you don't have a charge, and you hopefully have a more meaningful process where things are resolved. So we've had people come in, the police have referred them to people who have gotten in a fight outside, at 7-Eleven. And then, we've gotten to a place where they've been able to resolve a conflict and move on, and that ripples out into the community. So we have the police refer things to us. Also, the courts refer cases to us. So people coming through the court, they have a case adjudicated, and then as part of their sentencing, essentially. Often there's a choice. They could pay a fine, or they could come do the program. So it allows some choice. And then also we have people who are referred through probation requirements. So again, the court has a requirement that they come do the program, and in order to stay with their probation requirements, they need to do that. And then also really, store owners, people who just have something happen to them in the community, anyone can come and come to us and say, this thing happened. And we might, let the police know, but often we can handle at the Justice Center too. I think a lot of people don't know that.
Well, that's interesting.
I didn't know that at all.
But if you're a shop owner and someone comes and steals something from your store, you can refer them directly to our organization. Yeah.
Do you find that using that restorative process is almost like an early intervention? Like maybe somebody that, if they didn't go through that process, they would become, I mean, or are there stats on that? Like they would become, I guess it's hard to predict, but they might become
Like
a repeat
recidivists.
offender.
Yeah, recidivism.
Right. I think there's a slide for that one too, right?
And we have
Predicting. It's awesome.
Right. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is that's one of the main goals of these kinds of programs, is just that the likelihood of reoffending is reduced significantly. And I don't know if you have stats on that, but
Yeah, I mean, we don't have like long-term stats on that, but we do have people tell us, that we watch the transformation happen in front of us a lot of times, where people, what we're focusing on, and we have a slide for this too, the restorative questions. What we're focusing on, at least when we go through a reparative process, we're focusing on what happened, really understanding what happened from someone's perspective. So, like, if you go into a courtroom, someone's not going to be like, "What was going on for you that day?
Yeah,
Like,
right,
what was happening?
Right.
Like, what's going through your mind and stuff?" And people get a chance to be heard and be like, "I was having the crappiest day, and I got in a fight with my girlfriend, and I was not focused, and that's why this happened." And so we can start from a place of understanding, and then we look at who was impacted and how. And so really, that's one of the main goals, is seeing how everything we do ripples out into the community. So it's like throwing a stone into a pond, and we do something, and they start to see like, oh, that DUI I got affected my mom because she needs to drive me around now. It affected my job because I can't always get there on time. It affected my family member, And they start to see, we actually create a list of people who are impacted by each thing. And you see how many people are impacted. And then we don't want people just to feel bad. We want them to be like, okay, this happened. And then we look at how to make things right for those relationships and how to repair those relationships. So as the slide says, we look for ways to carry out a plan to make amends to people. And sometimes that's really directly related to what happened, and sometimes it's more related to those relationships. So for example, we had a guy who he took something from a store, but in our conversations, it turns out he was really struggling with anger management. And so one of the ways that he made amends, because his family was impacted so much by him shoplifting, that he followed through on some anger management work. And you wouldn't necessarily think like, oh, you shoplifted, you should do anger management. It doesn't.
It
but in the process of
yeah.
understanding how it impacted people in his lives, that's how he made it.
Well, it sounds like you dig deeper into the root cause of the behavior versus just that's a bad behavior. So
Yeah,
you're going to
like
have
that.
consequences. So you look more for the root cause, and how can you, I don't know what the right term is, mediate that root cause or work moving forward. Just what you just said, like who'd have ever, that wasn't what I thought you were going to say when you said he did it, because I thought you were going to say he was, food insecure or something like that. But yeah, anger management and shoplifting doesn't match.
Right.
So,
Yeah, we definitely widened that out, and we kind of look at what's going on underneath. And really, when those kinds of things are addressed through this process, that the rate of recidivism goes down,
Right.
hopefully, because they're addressing these things that would possibly cause them to do harm in the future. Yeah.
I remember quite a long time ago, we had a couple of guests on from GFCC.
CJC.
That is the hardest thing. It really is. It's like a tongue
to get used
twister.
to, yeah.
And they spoke about that Vermont is kind of leading the way, or was at that time leading the way. Are we still leading the way on restorative justice?
We still are. There are more states now. For a while, we were the only state who actually had restorative justice like embedded in our justice
Really?
system.
Wow.
Now that has changed. And there are certainly like diversion programs in most states, but there's more of an openness to restorative justice. So I think Vermont is still considered to be, but at the forefront. But
It's good to hear.
We're not the only ones anymore,
So
which is good.
Tell us a little. What other slides would you like to go with?
What
I know
is
we're kind of
next?
there. We go.
We have
What
talked
is
about this a little
restorative
bit,
justice?
but,
A little
yeah.
bit, Bob.
Yeah, just like what restorative justice is to begin with. Yeah, I think the collaborative piece is really important. So, in this definition, it's a collaborative approach. So, one of the things that we have, which is different than a lot of programs, is like we have community volunteers who are part of these processes. So, they're very important to us, and they're people who really care about this community, and they show up as community representatives. And when someone comes in, we're not like, oh, you did something wrong. You did this. We think you should do 20 hours of community service. It's a collaborative process, like I said, of figuring out what are the root causes. Are there resources we can help connect them to? And it's a collaborative problem-solving process to figure out what relationships need to be repaired and what needs to be done.
And through the process, they create new relationships with community members and feel supported, and they get to tell their story to people that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten to tell their story to. And I think they just feel, they feel just more supported in general with the community.
And is that just like the heart of KOSUs?
Yeah, COSA, right.
COSA,
So it's, and that's okay.
I always
And
put a U on it. I don't know why.
That's okay. And I don't know if there's a slide. I don't know if
There's
there's
a
a
slide on
slide
our programs.
Okay.
Yeah.
COSA, just as a reminder, is the circles of support and accountability. So, so when someone's going to be released from prison, and we work mostly with people at Southern States Correctional Facility, and when they're getting ready to come back into the community, we will, if they want to, it's a voluntary program, and all of our programs, I should say, are voluntary. I think unless they're probation and parole, but for the most
voluntary
part,
right.
That we form a panel of volunteers again from the community, and we meet weekly. And so because a lot of times people need a lot more support, and we just kind of go over what their needs are and provide relationships with the community members. And just support them in really whatever way possible. Like, for example, we're doing one right now, and this person in particular also needs some, therapy, but cannot find a therapist, and so we're helping them find like a group that will help with that or something. And transportation can sometimes be provided, and connecting them with services and things like that. So just to feel like you're actually connected to your community. And the COSAs can actually start 6 months before someone's released. So lately we've been going back into the prisons, back into the Southern States Correctional Facility to do COSAs in the prison to start so the person feels supported already when they come out. And that's really been important because during the pandemic that was not allowed. And so that made it really hard for these programs to keep going. And then the other thing that we're doing in terms of the incarcerated individuals work is some of us are going in now to do some restorative circles in the prison. And this is the first week. We're starting tomorrow, actually, for our first restorative circle in the prison. So we're excited about that.
What's a restorative circle?
So kind of what Lauren was talking about. So just kind of teaching and also getting to know what they know about restorative versus punitive practices, And so kind of making that distinction, teaching about that, and then giving them the opportunity to share kind of what their experience of that is and how they could live kind of a life that is more oriented in kind of more restorative way instead of punitive, because they've been treated, in a punitive way a lot of the time. And that's kind of all, a lot of times all our incarcerated individuals have been exposed to. So just to open it up and teach them a little bit more about that and have them explore and experience that.
It seems like it's more of what I'm hearing is teaching them to kind of own how they're feeling, and then own their choices, and then know that they have choices. They don't have to keep repeating the same cycle. Like, what is it? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So you're kind of giving them the opportunity to embrace a different result.
Right, absolutely. And that is the accountability part in the COSA, right? So they have support from community members, but also learning how to really just hold themselves accountable and making sure that their actions are not impacting others in a negative way. And so just learning to live, a different way.
But it also sounds like you're incorporating the community in the process much more than
a jury of your peers.
Well, no, I was thinking more. We sort of say, someone did something wrong. Well, that's the police. The police need to deal with that. And you guys are making it the community needs to deal with that. There needs to be a much deeper approach to that.
Right.
And you do work with the victims too, and I was because part of the process I've been going through as we're talking is, you know, when the police handle a problem, it's sort of just, you know, this is it. You're going to be there's no control. The community does. Once the police get involved, there's probably little control. They control the situation. It was one of the issues we dealt with when I worked with mental health, and so where I lost my thought, but because it's black and white, and the police are involved or not involved, you guys are bringing in the community, but also the victim. If a person is if the perpetrator or whatever you call them is dealt with by the police, the victim doesn't necessarily get anything out of that. You know, a person going to jail for 6 months doesn't really help the victim or help them get their justice, their portion of the justice. And so is that some of the stuff you work on, or?
Yeah, and just to be clear, so I am officially a victim advocate, but Lauren also works a lot with the victims as well. And yeah, so that's exactly it. We try to make sure that the victims' voices, at least if they don't want to be involved in a process, sometimes it's really not something they want to do. They don't want to be face to face with someone who they've been impacted by. But we try to at least bring their voices, and we try to center kind of their work that we're doing with even the person who did the harm. We try to center the victim's voice there, or try to center like the victim's experience, you know, or the harmed party's experiences. So yeah, we definitely bring that in, a lot. And like Lauren talked about the ripple effects, you know, just like the lot more harmed parties than you think, not just that one.
Not just that one person,
right?
Because, you know, like nobody exists as an island, and I think we get so like this sometimes. And I'm not saying I mean, everybody does that in their life now. We're so like this. I mean, just driving now is crazy because people are like this.
And most of these situations are not black and white too, and so often there is like a responsible party and a harmed party, but often there are there are shades, there are lots of gray areas, and so we can explore those. And we can say to someone might come in and be like, well, this is not all my fault. And we're like, okay, well, what part is yours? And can you own your part? And then we can also, the community members can also hold some of the other parts. And sometimes those parts are like just the fact that it's hard to access mental health support and things like that. And we can be there and be like, yeah, that's true. And we're all responsible for that, you know, and we can take responsibility for that too.
So we are down to about 2.5 minutes. I know we told you it was going to go fast. So if you could talk about how to reach you, contact you, because I'm assuming you need volunteers for both.
We love our volunteers, and we have so much fun. And I usually make cookies and. Let's see.
What does it say on there?
So for this, if you want to become a volunteer, you get in touch with us, and the next slide will give our contact info. But there is some training that's required. None of it's too onerous. And then really the time commitment, if you're on a reparative panel, it's only once a month for 2 hours a month. And for COSA, it's once a week for 1 hour a week. And so it's not too bad. And it's a really powerful way. Our volunteers often stay with us for many, many years and really talk about how much they get out of the experience.
And get to know the parties, you know, and it feels just really good that they're helping the community. Also, the work for COSA is in Bellows Falls and in Springfield, I should mention. And my colleague, Polly Mahoney, both of our colleagues, is also a reentry coordinator or runs COSAs up in Springfield too. So if anybody is staying from Springfield and you want to do that, we have volunteer.
And just quickly, because I know, I can't think of the name of it, there's a movie, right?
Yeah.
That really goes in depth into the COSAs. You showed it at the library. I think it was like right before COVID. You
really good.
It's a Bess O'Brien movie called Coming Home, and there's a link to it, I believe, on our website still. So you can check out our website. And
because it really, I mean, if you're even remotely interested, because at that time I was interested, that's why I wanted to kind of see the reality of it. It's a well done movie, and it would really give you the reality of kind of what, and also the reality that I think the hard reality is it doesn't always work. And I think that's the hard reality for people
It's
to,
true.
you should come in knowing that that's
Absolutely.
important to know,
Yeah.
so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think we are close. Yeah, so, well, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you
Yes,
for
thanks for
having us
coming in,
today.
and I
Yeah.
hope you'll come back sometime and give us an update and some
Yeah,
more
that would be
information, because it seems like we've only skimmed the surface.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Pleasure
well,
being
thanks everyone, and we'll see you next week. This is Mike and Marty in the feed.
All right.